since Abraham himself was not an Israelite, that means that the Most High gave his truth to Goyim. Is that correct? Because Abraham was not an Israelite. He gave his truth to Goyim. Noah was not an Israelite either, coming off that boat or going onto the boat. These are just irregular Goyim, like irregular Gentiles, right? Today's date is January 21, 2018. My title is You Are What Your Father Is. We've all heard that saying enough, and I want to just take a look at some of this Ethiopian stuff I've been seeing in the scriptures, or Cushite information, and try to see how much it makes sense with me rereading the scriptures now. I'm at this website, jandeyonggenesis.blogspot.ca, and I won't really read it. It's a good enough read, so you can check it out if you want. Abraham's Cushite ancestors. The date of the article is Friday, September 17, 2010, by Alice C. Lindsley. That's Linsley. Abraham's Cushite ancestors. And it's from this website called Just Genesis. So look at it. But them saying Abraham's Cushite ancestors, like, it speaks enough, of course, to let me understand that these people, if you read it through, they're trying to tie Abraham to Cushite ancestors, as the title suggests. Now, how can Abraham have Cushite ancestors? Because as far as I've learned, Abraham had ancestors of Shem, or Shemitic line that he was in. So I just don't get it. You know, sometimes we just go with the regular teachings, and we're just so concerned about living right and keeping the laws and so on, and it's like there's just some base things that just don't make sense. Like, how can I go forward building up on something that just does not make any sense? So I got to take some time to look into these things, and I really just want to share some stuff here to show you what's going on in my mind. I noticed the scripture says in Genesis that the Most High made them, but then there was no woman for Adam. So that seems a little bit strange. So you have to understand, I'll say this without apology, the scripture is not written properly. It's not written very well. And I'm tired of just having people just try to defend the scripture, because, like, you got to defend God or whoever wrote this thing. I'm not saying the book isn't very powerful. It is, and so on. But I'm just saying things are not laid out properly in the scriptures. Not well enough. And I know it's Eastern writing, different from how we think over here in the West, but it is not written well enough. That's probably going to be either because somebody doctored up the text somewhere along the line to try to hide stuff, and there are people out there who believe that, or they're focusing so much on what was going on in their time or just with their people alone that's how it came out. I don't know, that just doesn't even make sense to me, that last part. But in any case, to tell me that he said, let us make man, and then male and female created he them, and in the next chapter, chapter 2 of Genesis, he's putting the man that he made and so on. And you got to tell everybody on earth it's because you don't have special knowledge of the Hebrew to understand it. That just doesn't fly. The most important book on earth, and the very opening chapter or 2 or 3, you can't really understand it on your own. That seems really strange to me, to try to tell a world to get to God with this kind of opening to the only book that's supposed to lead you to the Most High, His Torah. So anyway, that's not my main problem here in this lesson titled You Are What Your Father Is. But look at this. Adam is not of Shem, because we know there was no Shemite in the time of Adam, according to what we see written. So Adam is not of Shem. He's not of the Hebrews. He is not an Israelite. Israelite, yeah, the only family of people the Most High of the Bible is dealing with. So how in the world did he make his way in the Bible? Say, oh, well, he was the first man, he started out. You understand that had Adam written a book, his book would have different concepts in it, and no doubt would have different or additional history. But certainly different concepts, as the earth had not yet developed. So you and I, we don't have any way to understand fully what earth was like and who exactly was there at that time. Because some are saying Adam was just the only man created at first. And then some will say, well, Adam and Eve. Then some will say the word really in the Hebrew means he made many, many people at one time. And it's looking to me to be more the case that he made many people at one time. But he would certainly have expressed some different concepts, because the way we're living now with all kinds of confusion about the text, I don't think Adam, if he was really the first person and learned all kinds of things from the Creator, would have been confused. He certainly didn't seem confused when the Most High said, don't eat from this tree. He understood very well. And we know they understood it because when they ate, they tried to hide from the Most High. So obviously he understood. Keep in mind also that they're telling you that Adam's children were offering sacrifice to the Most High, Cain and Abel, and then we know the big fight came out and Cain killed Abel. To tell you again that Adam would have had different concepts if he wrote a book that somehow we just don't have if it was written, it's a little bit odd, because you got this first sacrifice, and some are telling us that the Creator himself killed an animal to clothe them before he put them out of the garden as well. But his children, they're offering sacrifice to the Most High. You got this first sacrifice, and some are telling us that the Creator himself killed an animal to clothe them before he put them out of the garden as well. But his children, they're offering sacrifice to the Most High. So why is it that the sacrifices of today and of later Bible times, before Israel fell, just happen to be the same exact kind of sacrifice as possibly what happened in the garden, although I don't think it was a sacrifice in the garden, but also the same kind of sacrifice as Cain and Abel would have known about to be offering? Why is it that that kind of sacrifice that Israel had and other nations had didn't come up later? And Cain and Abel would have been either not offering a sacrifice because they didn't know of sacrifices at the time, or offering different kinds of sacrifice other than a food sacrifice, whether it's crops and food of the land or animals like they were doing. Why isn't it something else? Why does it have to be the same thing? So that to me there is a little bit suspect, because maybe at the time man would have grown to offering certain kinds of, let's say, animal sacrifices, or the Most High told Israel to offer sacrifices. But how likely is it that when the earth just started, or when man just started on the earth, all of a sudden they just know that they should just offer these animal sacrifices? It seems really odd to me. So something is definitely missing there, and we just don't have Adam's word on that to hear from him. So if Adam was not a Hebrew, was not an Israelite, was not a Shemite, then what this means is when Adam gave birth to other children, him and Eve, if you are what your father is, then those children, they're what Adam was. So let's call them Adamites. But they're certainly not Israelites, and they're not Hebrews either, right? So they're Adamites. Now, since we say the Most High just dealing with Israelites and the Hebrews, the Shemites, those that are of the seed of Jacob, and if it's Israel like the scripture says, then basically, like Amos chapter 3 says, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. So everybody else then is not an Israelite, because he's only dealing with Israelite. That's what the scripture says. Here it is in Amos chapter 3 verse 1. Hear this word that the Most High has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, You only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. So when you look at now families here, it's telling you it's dealing with clans and tribes, people, nation. So these things here seem to me to be what Adam and his children and those other children he had, that group right there, that initial group, would have been their own tribe or group or family. But the scripture is saying, You only have I known of all the families of the earth. So since we know Adam and his people were on the earth, how come the Most High didn't know them when he was giving them the laws? I mean, Adam, as the head of this family or the ruler of this tribe of Adamites, this clan, Adam got instructions from the Creator, so he knew the Creator. There was no temptation in the garden about what the Most High said if he never had commandments given to them. So that seems kind of odd right there. If Adam was not an Israelite and a Shemite, I mean, what does that make somebody like Noah and Abraham and so on? Since Abraham himself was not an Israelite, that means that the Most High gave his truth to Goyim. Is that correct? Because Abraham was not an Israelite. He gave his truth to Goyim. Noah was not an Israelite either, coming off that boat or going onto the boat. These are just irregular Goyim, like irregular Gentiles, right? I mean, I'm trying to understand this stuff and ask you to think about it as well, because when you look at like the Ebla tablets that were found in Syria, now when you're dealing with these Ebla tablets and they're linking it to Abraham and so on, obviously you're finding out that there were some commandments from before. So at what point did commandments really come about? So is Israel unique to getting the commandments, or were there commandments before? You understand what I'm saying? Because you might have thought that I started out just one of his dumb videos again. But if there were commandments before, that means commandments did not begin with Israel. So Israel came late in the game. Adam got the first commandments. And if before Israel was set up, Noah was getting commandment and covenant and Abraham and so on, that obviously means that commandments were being given. The Most High was dealing with a group of people, a line of people, before Israel came. So this whole thing of Israel is unique with the commandments and Sinai and all that. I mean, Sinai, if you see a big rainbow coming down upon the earth when you're coming off the boat with Noah, I mean, do you really need Mount Sinai to feel like the Creator is right there dropping a covenant with you and you're coming off the boat? So you're like, okay, well, he's making a new nation, so he gives a whatever to Israel coming out of Egypt, Mount Sinai stuff, a new nation being set up. Well, what about the nation of Noah with a covenant and a rainbow never before seen on earth by man? In fact, all the people who died in the flood never got the chance to lay their eye on that rainbow. So then, when Noah comes out, he is a family again, like Adam's family. So this family coming off the boat is their own nation. Remember, they are a family. So this is the nation of Noah. The family, the clan, the tribe of Noah, with a covenant regarding how to live on the whole earth. And that covenant should not allow anyone to transgress, because why bother make the covenant? He expected everyone to live right. So why is it any weaker than the covenant that Israel got at Sinai? When, like I said, the Ebla tablets and probably another set of tablets you're going to find maybe in the future, if they've already found it and not told us, is going to show that there were some other commandments that some people had with the Most High in the line of Shem, or whatever line, the line of Adam, that had a covenant with the Most High and so on. So you see what I'm saying? When you really dig into it and ask the questions that people don't like to hear you ask because they want to say, brother, you're not Israel. When you start to ask those questions, it gets kind of messy, doesn't it? Because you realize it's not as simple to shut me up just by saying shut up. It's not that simple. So the fact is, you have to understand that if you go with the current or traditional thinking that Israel got a covenant at Sinai and they are the ones dealing with the Most High, with the covenant of the Most High and getting the commandments and so on, then you have to understand that somebody like Abraham and Noah and so on that you're saying are the forefathers of Israel, how can they give birth to Israel when they are Goyim? Abraham would have been Goyim because he's not an Israelite. He's not of the nation that the Most High was dealing with in Amos chapter 3 verse 1 and 2. You only have I known. So Gentiles gave birth to Israel. Gentiles like Noah and Gentiles like, and of course I'm using the word Gentiles in a loose sense to just say somebody who's not of the covenant. That's the way I'm kind of using it, right? But you know I'm saying not of Israel. So what's the understanding here? That Abraham started out as a heathen or a pagan or what? Because he wasn't an Israelite. He was not of the seed of Jacob. And by our focus on this Noah and this Abraham, Adam, the original person to have heard from the Most High, just gets pushed out of the picture. And he has nothing to do with the Most High anymore. Nothing. And what about this Eden? Even though you see Eden show up another time or two in the scriptures. But Eden is that the Most High starts off and he intends to correct them later and restore later on, just like he's going to restore Israel, it says. But why isn't Eden going to be restored? Well, Joel says, like the Garden of Eden, but is that the same as the same place of Eden? What place could be better than Eden? What place on earth? You mean the land of Israel? Now look in Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 5 to 7. It seems that Israel kept the statutes of false gods, but somehow they're given a chance. In Ezekiel 8, verse 17, Israel again, they've done some cruel, wicked things, and they're going to be given another chance. Look at what it says. Ezekiel 8, verse 17. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger, and lo, they put the branch to their nose. So he goes on to say in verse 18 and so on that, he's basically furious, he's angry. So they do all that stuff, but we know the scriptures in other places say he's going to restore them. Yet still, these ancient Ethiopians or Adamites, whatever they really were called, they did their own abominations as well, but they don't get a second chance, right? They watch the stars, they worship the stars, they did all kinds of stuff and whatever, but they don't get another chance. But Israel gets that chance. Why? Even though we're finding that Abraham is one of these descendants of these ancient Cushites, even though you're telling me he is a Shemite, it needs to be cleared up. You see what I'm trying to say? Something is wrong. And when you look at these black people, it's black people in general, like when you look at Africa and the indigenous people spread over the earth, because the ancient Ethiopians, they said, went everywhere and blah, blah, blah. These are the people, and if we just stick with Africa now in general, is getting, they've been hit really hard by white supremacy going and just taking over and destroying and so on. They've been hit really hard, but it is just the Israelite that somehow the prophecy is for. That seems a bit strange. Then you get the Amos 9 verse 6, Israel is like the Ethiopian. So, people who came out of Adam are Ethiopians, or so we would call them today. But that would then mean that the Ethiopians are Adamites. So if you are what your father is, then Ethiopians are Adamites. And again, if you are what you are, then Noah is an Ethiopian, but then he really is an Adamite because his father, being an Ethiopian, is an Adamite as well. When you get onto Abraham, Abraham would then be an Ethiopian because that's what his father is and that's what his lineage is. And it goes back, that person and that person, that person is an Adamite, going back to Adam. So if you are what your father is, they're always an Adamite, even if they change their name, if they move to try to start up civilization elsewhere and so on. They're really still an Adamite because you are what your father is and you carry that wherever you go. So they might call themselves someplace else, they run over to India, but they're still an Ethiopian. And then, in effect, they're really still an Adamite. So then Abraham would still be an Adamite. Now you say you're Israelite, you found out you're Israelite, you live in America, you're American, but you're still Israelite. Now if you move to someplace else, let's say you move to wherever else, you change your name based on that country, whatever it's called today, but you're still Israelite. So if Ethiopians moved anywhere after they leave the Eden area or the garden area, they're still an Adamite. Like, it might sound silly to you, but I'm trying to get you to see that if we teach that you are what your father is, that does not change no matter what. You are still an Adamite. And there's enough information that you can find out there that when you deal with manifest destiny and so on, they basically call these indigenous people and these Negroes and so on the Adamites. It's like they know we're the Adamites. That's who we link to. That's who we come from. And so they choose to call us at certain points. So you can call yourself Israelites all you want. Out there, they're still looking at you in their fine-tuned documents as the Adamites, as the children of Adam. Why do they feel the need to still classify you as that sometimes? Even though you are calling yourself an Israelite from the Bible. If there really is no merit to it, no meaning to it. Because to be an Adamite means you have original claim to the earth, a right to the earth. A right that has more weight to it than an Israelite who came later on and found somebody else here, and you're going to say, well, I came late, but God made me. Well, he made me Adamite first. That doesn't mean anything. Now, if we look at Psalm 147, 19 and 20, look at what this is saying here. Of course, we all know it. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Most High. But I told you already, the first clan or family of the earth was really Adam and his descendants. He's got Eve and the children and so on came out of him. So this is really the first family of the earth. Because if you're reading the scriptures with simplicity, and even the New Testament has, for those of you who like the New Testament, has Jesus saying to something like, become as a little child, or you cannot enter the kingdom and so on. So a child is going to see things with a clear, like a pristine kind of mind, right? He's going to see things that really just seems much clearer, much simpler, because they don't have the conditioning of the years of racism and of bigotry in education and bias and so on. So the child would see something like this, says, but wait, but wouldn't the first family be Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel and so on? And as they grew, They're their own clan or tribe or family on the earth. And then more family gets created when Cain leaves off because of judgment and goes to land of Nod, eastward, wherever he went, and started up some more, have some more growth right there. That's another clan. That's a second family now because he broke away, but he's still part of the larger family, but because of a curse, he's disconnected. But he will always be the son of Adam. That just cannot change. That's just biological truth. So a child would say, but the first family was. Because you look at, if you say now Jacob is the father of Israel, the real direct father then. And he has the first child, second child, until he gets all 12 children with Joseph and the two children there and so on. But if we look at it now, the direct father would be Jacob. And as he has one child after the next, that family of quote unquote God or the family of Israel is growing. So when they are that small, they are still that family. They're just small. But it doesn't mean they are not a family or a clan. They haven't split up into tribes because they're small. Like the scripture says, when they were small, he suffered no man to do them harm. But he still treated them as a nation. It's just that he's acknowledging in the scriptures that they were small at that time. Well, when Adam was small and it's just him and Eve and Cain and Abel, and let's say however the many children he had, not yet in the thousands or the millions, but when he was small at first, then it's just like Israel, when they were small and suffered no man to do them harm. When Adam's people were small, they were still a family on the earth that the Creator was dealing with and gave them commandments. Don't tell me the Most High, the only thing he said to him was, don't eat from that tree. Because we know he was getting other commandments like name these animals and so on. How would Adam have known how to do all that if the Most High wasn't telling him stuff? So we know that, or we can guess that there are other commandments. It's very simple to come to that conclusion from reading the scriptures. Because when you look at the way the Most High talks to people when he's dealing with new arrangements with people, he doesn't just simply say one thing. He says a number of things. So Adam would have got a number of commandments. That's commandment dropping there. The first man to get commandments from the Most High, set apart commandments, because that would be the only kind, was done to Adam, to the first family. So like I said, you don't just get one word normally from the Most High. You get multiple stuff. Like at Sinai, multiple things were said. And sometimes we think, oh, you just got 10 commandments. But when you read it, they're telling us there were 613 commandments. Now, when you're dealing with Noah, he doesn't just simply say one thing to him. He says a number of things to him. So what's going to happen now with Adam? Adam wouldn't just get one single commandment, don't eat from that tree. How much growth is in that to tell the man don't eat from that tree? He would have taught other things to him. That's why we need Adam to give his voice. So we are missing some writings. I will never be satisfied with anybody telling me Adam never wrote or taught anything. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The Creator is dealing with a world. And no instruction or writing comes to the first man as the manual for the entire lifetime on earth with billions of people that is going to pass through this earth. But you can make just a little dishwasher and you get a 10, 20, 30 page manual with it, or a television. And the Creator makes a world and he just says one little thing to the man. Or maybe two little things for a complicated earth like this. He just says two little things, don't eat from that tree, and name all those animals. So then, if he never dealt so with any other nation, as in Psalm 147, 19 and 20, he shows his word to Jacob. That seems, I don't know, that just seems, it's kind of weird the way the scriptures is written. You see what I'm trying to say here? Like somebody didn't think this thing through properly. And remember, Adam lived right. You want to talk about, oh, he sinned because he ate fruit with Eve. The man still lived for a while before he did that. which means the man was living set apart or right. So because he fell one time, that means that he's no good, period? Well, if he's no good, who's the Most High going to work with? Because he was the only man on earth to begin with. And if you say the Most High had his holy seed coming down for Jesus, for those of us who believe the New Testament, but then Israel to come out of the whole setup, whether you believe it's Israel or it's Jesus, Adam would still have had to be holy or set apart, because even though he sinned, Israel or Jesus cannot come out of Adam if Adam is no more good to the Creator. Because if that's the case, then everything coming out of Adam will perish. No good can come out of it. So the man sinned one time doesn't mean the Creator is just done with him. Maybe he can't live right there right now in the garden, so it gets put out, but that doesn't mean every seed that he pushes out is no more good to the Creator. Because then how do you explain somebody like Noah or Abraham? And if Adam never got judgments and statutes and commandments, how were they doing sacrifices? It's the same setup like Israel. These guys are functioning like priests. Adam and Cain and Abel, because they're offering sacrifices. They're functioning in the capacity of priests. And the children are learning to be their own priests as well. And Adam already got commandments dropped which he would have taught. So they are like, I guess that's why some people say they're a type of Israel, or Adam and Eden is like a type of Israel and so on, Adam and Eve. But you see, they have the whole, so what we're finding is that no one needs to look at a story developing to become Israel later on. Israel began in the Garden of Eden. But that might sound good to you, but my problem with that really is, if Israel needed to be set up because of sin that came in the world, why is Adam already a type of an Eden and Eve a type of Israel? Shouldn't Israel be a band-aid kind of solution to a failed or botched Garden of Eden kind of lifestyle? So the Most High should now create something else called Israel? Because if Israel is Israel, the chosen people, Adam and Eve in the garden would have been the chosen people already. And Israel would have never been needed if they didn't sin. That means to me, the original and more intentional creation was not Israel, it was Adam. And Israel would have never been needed if they didn't sin. That means to me, the original and more intentional creation was not Israel, it was Adam. The original nation on earth. And where did Cain learn to do sacrifices and so on? Which priest taught him? Now these guys were all skillful. Till even Cain just somehow has a tool that he can use to kill his brother. And he knows, he's aware that it will kill him. And he is aware of what killing means, what it does, what it accomplishes, that the person will no longer be around anymore. He is aware of that. Notice when he killed them, he can even be trying to not own up to it, not hide and so on. Am I my brother's keeper? It's like he already knows, because when the Creator talked to him, he doesn't act surprised like, well, it's just a tool I made to work. I didn't realize, I got angry, but I didn't realize it would do something to him. No, he knew it would do something to him, so he didn't act surprised like, my goodness, I didn't realize that would happen if I hit him with it. I didn't even know what death was. He knew all these things. So the Bible is presented to us in a way where the people who first lived knew all kinds of things as if they had been living hundreds or thousands of years on the earth already, and knew all kinds of things the way modern people do today. Where is the growth and the development right there in the early chapters of earth? Something is missing from the scriptures. There's some time slot missing, where things are not developed properly. Somebody is writing this in a way that it should not have been written. And I'm started being scared to say it. It's not written properly. Somebody's hiding some time from us. Just like you've heard so many documentaries say and authors say stuff like, people just mysteriously show up in Sumer, just like that, out of thin air. Like we just think people just leave leave the Garden of Eden and all of a sudden Sumer is happening like that. Everybody's got like their own little mini kingdom with their own little kings in their ears. Like you just leave the Garden of Eden and you just figure out that we should all just be kings and ruling like that. And then we're just going to pool and come together and make this great big Sumer. A lot of time is missing. So it's a little bit difficult to understand Adam now, as he seems like some kind of an imposter to the idea of God or the Creator working with Shemites who would later make Israel. Because then you get the Adamites coming out of him, who we would loosely call Ethiopians, whatever they'd call themselves originally. But that's what I guess we'd call them today. But it seems kind of strange, because nobody wants to call them Adamites, but we don't have a problem calling other people Israelites and so on. But look at this now website from RioCities.com, titled The Cushite Hebrew. Who are they and where do they come from? I've been telling you guys, by the way, it's by Zachariah Shaul Gramillion, if you want to look it up here. Now, I hit a snag when I started to reread the scriptures on my own. And people want to tell me it is dangerous to do that. A couple of people have referred me to learn some stuff and whatever and go where to learn and whatever. I don't have any problem with that. Because obviously I learned from the other Hebrew teachers and so on, whatever. The problem is that all or most of the people, like 99%, if not all of the people that I see teaching Torah in the Hebrew Israelite community as well as in the Jewish community out of Judaism, they all sound like they're regurgitating the same thing in the same kind of way for the most part. And the most times they change is to try to change stuff is to like prove that we're the Israelites because slave ships and Israelites were black and so on. But most of the other things, if you would just be honest with me and take a breath from trying to curse me long enough to understand that what I'm saying is the truth, most of us teach the Torah the same way with the same views. The same way. You're not free to think on your own because you're in another religion on the earth and you can't see it. Now, maybe I am as well, because I'm like, oh, I'm not in a religion, this is just our culture and so on, and we're relearning our culture. But I mean, lately I've had to say, this is just a religion. I got my own book as well. Like everybody else in every other religion needs to have their own book. So, it's that to come to that reality, really. And it's like, if you say anything different, people just want to just turn you off. It's like, but look at this, the Cushite Hebrew. Look at what this article is saying. Who are those people who call themselves Cushite Hebrews? And they said, isn't that a contradiction? How can an individual call themselves Cushites and Hebrews? The answer is quite simple from the true and proper analysis of what a Cushite and Hebrew is, and how do they continue to exist in the present day and time. First, Cush or Kish is descendant of the prophet Noah through his father Ham, according to Genesis chapter 10 and verse 8, which says, and Cush begat Nimrod, he began to be a mighty one in the earth. So Cush is one of the fathers of the civilizations of the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia and also of the civilizations of Northeast Africa. Cush basically populated the areas known as Sumer, Elam, Akkad, and Babylon. Today, these civilizations stand as rubble and mere remnants of the ancient past. And they go on to saying, basically, there's some different people living there now and so on, but in ancient times, it was different. But if Cush is descendant of Noah through his father Ham, then what we're finding then is that the Cushite is a Hamite. I've told you this so many times and you know it, but you accept that in the way that you've normally been taught, that, oh, Shemites are different. Listen to me again and get your head screwed on. The Cushite is a Hamite. That means the Cushite is what you would call, generally when you're reading old history, you would call them the Ethiopian. Same as saying Cushite, I guess. That would then mean the Hamite, loosely speaking, is referred to also as a Cushite. Right? So you see they kind of switch it around, because why is the Hamite being called a Cushite when Ham is the father? It should more be the Cushite that's called a Hamite alone. But anyway, they mix it up like that. But basically the same people. But I've told you already, Abraham is showing up, the more and more you read stuff, Abraham is showing up as a Cushite, which means Abraham is showing up as a Hamite, not a Shemite, until you read the more deeply biblical kind of reading. But when you go outside of the pages of the Bible and you start to read history, Abraham shows up as a Cushite, as an Ethiopian. So this needs to be cleared up. Now, as a further thought, with my own thought, if Noah is the father of the Hamites and the Cushites, that means that Noah himself should not really be a Cushite, because there was no Cushite as yet, because Ham was not born at first, until, of course, later he had Ham. But I can understand as well, because just like Ham is called a Cushite, you know. So, in anyway though, Noah, Ham, and Cush are the same kind of people. So if they are all Ethiopians, then, loosely speaking, you would have to say, if you are what your father is, then Cush is what Ham is, and Ham is what Noah is. And when you go all the way back from Noah, Noah would then be what Adam is. So Noah himself is an Adamite. That means the Hamite and the Cushite is an Adamite. And if Shem also is of Noah, and Noah is an Adamite, because you are what your father is, and the lineage carried through, as you can trace it in the scriptures, like read Genesis chapter 5 to see genealogy, that means that Abraham, coming out of Shem on the pages of the Bible, Abraham is an Adamite. Notice that no matter how much Israel sinned, when the Most High destroyed them, he always brought them back, because he always said he will restore them. And now with this last captivity, he's like, look, I'm still going to restore you guys. You're just going to be in punishment for a very long time. But you're still going to go back to being restored to being an Israelite. Why doesn't Adam's people get restored to being Adamites, the original people who basically own the earth? If we must always go back to original instructions, so that there is a book that must tell us to go back to the original instructions of Sinai, why is it that we are not able to go back to original instructions that Adam got? And he was the first person to find out how the company started. Adam was used to start this company with the Most High, called Earth. Let's go on reading. Despite the bias in modern biblical scholarship, so you see that people who are reading outside the Bible think that there is some bias by Bible readers. But biblical scholarship and geography, many places in Africa and Asia still use the name Cush and its variations. Oh, really? I wonder why they don't just use the name Israelite, since Israel was such a great kingdom. But apparently it seems to be Cush, or the Cushites, the Ethiopians, that were ruling the earth. So you put all this hard work into the earth and building it up to repopulate the place and so on, and spread the seed everywhere and so on, and fill the earth like the Creator said, and you fulfill the Creator's will. But then Israel comes in, a small new nation, and takes over the plan and gets all the blessings from the Most High. For example, Hindu Kush, which is a mountain range in northeast Afghanistan. It extends from the Himalayas. This region was and is inhabited by dark-skinned people. However, the current inhabitants of the region are mostly mixed with Indo-Aryan European migrants, but archaeological studies show that Afro-Hamitic Cushitic people inhabited the area, and they are citing here Van Sertima, African presence in early Asia. So Afro-Hamitic Cushitic people are spreading everywhere, ruling and setting up life and so on. Indo-Aryan people came and found it later on and blah, blah, blah. But why is the Israelite not shown to have peopled this area? It's like the Israelite is only great, mighty, and glorious and in touch with God on the pages of the Bible. And don't tell me you can find proof of Israel, because yeah, I can understand that. But the greatness seems to be of Cushites. 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 Can you hear me? The greatness is of them. So if the greatness is of them, isn't the blessing from the Most High of them? To them? So who did he really bless? The Cushite. That's who he put his promise in. But a Bible tells you that the promise is to Israel. So like I'm starting to wonder, isn't Israel just a part of the Cushites? Or have the ancient Ethiopians coming out of Adam been given a bad deal historically in writing by being shown up as being different and a name slipped in called Israel, when the real people with the blessing of the Creator were these black people who we call ancient Ethiopians? And no matter how much you call yourself Israelite, whenever you read stuff about these ancient Ethiopians, you're proud of it, you're happy, because you know deep down inside of you, they are you. They are your forefathers. Obviously, Abraham didn't have a problem with them being his forefathers and living among them and so on. But we have been taught in this modern time, especially in the Western world, to dislike these ancient Ethiopians who did all these great wonders and so on. And we only like them when it's time to prove that it was black people back then that was ruling. Okay. Let me just read a little bit more here so I can close this out. Halfway down the page, it says, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie of Ethiopia traced his lineage not only to King Solomon, son of David, but to a long line of Cushite ruler all the way back to Adamah or Adam. So what I'm getting from this is that Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, although some don't agree, but if a white person was to be some president, prime minister, or king, and they trace their lineage, whatever, it seems like it's a little bit easier for you to say, okay, yeah. But His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie of Ethiopia traces lineage to King Solomon, son of King David, and he went past that and traced his lineage all the way back to Adam. And that don't mean much. All the way back to Adam. Telling you, if you are what your father is, he's saying Adam is his great forefather. The man apparently proved it. Adam is his forefather. So he can deal with Solomon and King David, saying they are his fathers as well. But for him, it was necessary to go back to the greater father, Adam. As if there is something greater that came before Israel that had King David and King Solomon. Adam carried more weight, so the man went all the way back. He's trying to say, if you are what your father is, he's trying to say, I'm a son of Adam. Now here they go on to say the Hebrews are descendants of Shem through Abraham, who this Yahweh God made a special and sacred covenant, the promise of a great nation and the right to the land of Canaan, in return of his faithfulness and obedience meant to last for all times. Without going into great detail at this time, the name probably came from another family member named Eber, thus the word Hebrew, and they go on. This is just a list of the relation Israelite community had with the house of Cush. So they're basically going to take over the land of Cush, or the Hamites, the land of Canaan. They're going to take over. Now, these people seem to have been doing well, and even Haile Selassie was proud of it to trace the lineage, go back through these people all the way back to Adam. But the Most High is going to say, I'm going to take this land from them and I'm going to give it to you. But Abraham lived in a Hamitic Cushitic civilization called Ur of the Chaldees, a great Sumerian city. So it looked there like he was Hamitic Cushitic. Abraham, by divine authority, so God told him to move to Canaan into a Hamitic empire ruled by Canaanites, descendants of Ham. So he's going to go into an empire already run by Ham, and he's going to take that over, even though Ham and Shem had intermarried a lot, so they're intertwined. It's hard to tell who's who. It's just hard. So the people are living as one. Ham and Shem, they're living as one. Now, Japheth seems to not be mentioned as much in these kinds of discussions, but Ham and Shem are living as one. So this is their own kingdom. The Moses says, I'm going to set you up and I'm going to let you take over your brother's kingdom and get rid of him. And he's saying it's because the Canaanites were wicked. But I just read to you scripture here. Where is it again? I think it was, let me see if it's Ezekiel 8:17. Where is that? Yeah, Ezekiel 8:17, the abominations of Judah, like they made him very, very furious, even in verse 18. And they provoked him to anger and so on. Things which he repeated a number of times in the scripture. The Most High said this kind of stuff a number of times. Like it's kind of like they perfected the sins or transgressions of the other nations, so to speak. So Israel seemed to have gone so far that the Creator had to push him away from his presence. Like I can't even be in the same room with you. So that's what Israel became. And he's not going to take away their blessing. But these other people, the Canaanites, who are your own brothers of Ham and so on, that come out of your own father Noah, they are wicked, so they get to lose their land. But the Israelites, they are so wicked, but they only lose their land for a time and then they're going to get their land back. But the Canaanites don't need to get theirs back, even though the Israelites seem to have been more wicked. Because at least they got commandments from the Most High, the scripture is saying, and they pissed off the Most High. Like, the Most High must have been so angry with Israel, with these Shemites, to spend so much time talking about their transgressions and how they made him filled with fury and anger. He spent so much time, the amount of time which he didn't spend talking about the Cushites. So it was on his mind so much that he kept talking about the transgressions of Israel. Yet they get to take over the other people's land, the Canaanites, the Hamites' lands, who did less evil than they did. Abraham moved into Egypt when family hit Canaan. Jacob and his sons and his daughters and so on, also suffering famine, went to Egypt. Hebrews lived 400 years under Egyptian culture and service until liberated by Moses. Moses married an Ethiopian woman. And I already showed in another video that Moses just married somebody from his own race because Moses was Ethiopian as well. Cushite and Hebrews mixed seed in many periods, thus the existence of Lemba and Falasha communities in Africa that retain their Hebrew cultures, not converted by Jewish European communities. Okay, this one here, I don't want to go on much longer with this, but this is just a video that just gives you some information to make you think some more, right? Because something is really odd the way this Israelite stuff is presented in scripture. as if somehow these Hebrews are not Cushites. When it seems to me, when you read different books, I mean, I don't have the book now. I mean, I do have it, I just don't know where to find it now. But when I just came into this Israelite understanding, I bought a book from another Hebrew brother, and he was telling how the Hebrews are Nubians, and proving it. I didn't know it would matter to me back then. I just thought it was strange that he would say that. But now I'm starting to see I got to go and dig that book up and try to reread it again. So you see what? The Israelites are different kinds of Ethiopians or different kinds of Cushites. Cushites who had different kinds of names based on the territories that they were living in, because they went into different lands conquering. Just like you got Hindu, Kush, and so on. So you got different groups, different pockets of them, because they went to different places. It's just like when Cain left because he was banished and he went to start in the land of Nod, wherever that is. That man Cain, he might be under a curse, but he was still an Adamite. So he would have another Adamite population growing up. And you might not easily figure it out, but that don't mean in the Most High's eyes he's not an Adamite. He came out of Adam. He was Adam's son. So if you get Cush splitting up into different groups, and they go here and they start a little community here and they build up and so on, and then another group of them go and start here, and then another one go and start Egypt, and another one go and start here, and so on. That's just them. The same thing that they did with Sumer. It's these people who came out of Adam, who we later call Cushites or Ethiopians. So it seems to me that all or most or a lot of these people were just lumped into one name called Cushites, no matter what name they went under, because they just split up coming out of Adam and called themselves different names. But this website here, kajresearch.com, that's K-A-J research.com, from August 27, 2015. This looks like a very nice one to read. I'm not going to go through it. I'm just going to mention it quickly. But it says, titled Chapter 2, Cushite Bondage and Exodus in 12th Dynasty, and it gives a few pictures on the side. They're showing Cushite bondage and Exodus in Egypt. Normally you hear about Israelite bondage in Egypt. They're telling you about Cushite bondage in Egypt. Cushite Nubian oppression in 12th Dynasty Egypt. Talking about the Cushites of Nubia. So, I mean, what does this say to us, people? Is Israel just a name for part of the Cushites? Is the Israelite a Cushite? But you see, when the Cushites split up into different groups and call themselves, and they become known as different nations, there's still one larger body of the same people, but then they split up in different groups, and then they start fighting with each other and start enslaving each other and so on. But they're still Cushite. But that now brings another problem, which I can't get into here. I've talked about it before in another video. If these people, the Israelites, are still Cushites, and if Abraham was a Cushite, how is that possible when Cush came from Ham and the Shem people came from a different brother, Shem? Because you got Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But people who do not just stick to the Bible, they go through all kinds of stuff and prove and show to you, according to them, that these people are all Cushites. So where do you get these three sons coming off the boat with Noah? And notice again that even though the three sons come off, it's mainly Cush, 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 Cush. So Cush seems to have been so great. Like, you mean the Shemites just sat down waiting for God to do something with them till they come up with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then they made 12 children and 12 tribes. That seems kind of slack and lazy to you, doesn't it? Like, if you're running a business and you just, you don't have much money and you just barely try to scrape something to get it started, and you can't afford to lose anything, as you can't rebound from that. You want everybody to play their part, get up and do their stuff and do their work and whatever, and keep the ball rolling, so to speak. Somebody is not pulling their weight, they're a time waster. You can't make money off them. They don't help your little business grow. So Shem comes off the boat. He sit down waiting for God to try to give him 12 sons out of Jacob. But Cush, Ham comes off the boat, gets busy, pushes out Cush and whoever else, and gets busy and starts dominating the place and so on. And the reward they get from the Creator is to slap them in the face and say, I'm gonna make Israel. Where is the reward for you and I working on an earth like this with a God like that? Where? You try to do what the Creator said. You try to be responsible. He puts all this creativity in you. Just like He created this earth and heaven and so on, with all kinds of complicated stuff in there. You, as the Cushite, you come off and you honor your father Ham, and you do all this stuff, you build and you spread stuff until we're proud of it today, what the Cushites accomplished. And in turn, the Creator says, I don't really like you, I can't stand you. Your brother looks like you, your new brother Israel, Amos 9:6, are you not like the Ethiopian? He looks like you, I'm just going to get you out of the way and put the blessing on him as a nation of Israel, and let him take all the glory of the earth, even though you did all the work to build it. Really strange stuff. Really strange stuff. This stuff will drive you mad. Anyway, I've troubled you enough now. My thoughts here. For those of you who tolerate listening to me, I guess you're going to learn some stuff still if you look into these stuff I'm saying. Whether you agree or not, just by having to dig in and look at it to see if what I'm saying makes sense, you're going to at least better yourself. You're going to gain more knowledge. So at least it's not a full waste of your time listening to me with all these ramblings. Thanks and have a good week.